When Sennheiser announced the Momentum True Wireless back in 2018, they took many, including myself, by surprise because there weren't many true wireless audiophile grade earbuds. Now we are treated with a plethora of options, and today we're looking at the version 3 from the manufacturer. Now in this review you can see if they're still considered one of the best sounding earbuds on the market and to see if they're actually worth their price tag, because in the UK they can be found for £220 and in Europe around €250. So to kick off this review I want to talk about Bluetooth codec and connectivity, and this is quite important. Now these earbuds support the SBC, AAC and the aptX adaptive codecs, and the aptX adaptive codec is backwards compatible whereby it will support aptX, although not aptX HD. Now the reason I'm pointing this out and want to make this quite clear is because with my setup I've got a Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus which does not support aptX adaptive, although it does support aptX. Now the reason I have to highlight this is because there's only a select few smartphones out there in the world right now that actually support aptX adaptive. I'm sure that will change with Qualcomm and also with manufacturers incorporating the adaptive codec, but nevertheless it's something I thought to highlight. Because by comparison, the likes of the Technics EAH-AZ60s, which have SBC, AAC and LDAC codec, the latter over here is supported on pretty much any Android smartphone that runs Android 8 Oreo or above. As such, I really wish that Sennheiser had incorporated the LDAC codec for users like myself. I suspect many will be limited to the regular aptX codec and not benefit from the increased fidelity that you can get over the aptX adaptive codec. Suffice to say, if you don't have access to the aptX codec or the LDAC codec, for example, if you're running an iPhone, then here it will be running on the AAC codec or at worst the SBC codec. And here it will make no difference in terms of the transmission loss differences between, let's say, the Technics earbuds or, for example, the Sennheiser earbuds. So with that important information out of the way, I should also mention that I had no problems connecting over to my Samsung smartphone and therefore I had no sort of lip sync delays or video lag. Furthermore, the Bluetooth distance I was able to achieve was pretty impressive, whereby I was able to walk around 10 meters through walls. Not literally, but in that sort of sense, whereby I was able to walk away from my smartphone without having sort of intermittent issues when it came to connectivity. Furthermore, both the left and right drivers can be used independently from each other and therefore can be used in a mono format. And the switch between left and right channels is seamless between the case and indeed what is playing back through the earbuds. And in this department, Sennheiser should be really commemorated for what they've achieved. So with that in mind, let's get on to sound quality. Now these earbuds have the true response transducers and 7mm dynamic drivers. Elsewhere you've got a 3-band EQ which you can customize, in other words the overall sound profile, and you've got a sound check. Now the sound check feature effectively gives you ABC test. You get to choose which modes you prefer throughout the frequency range and then it gives you that 3-band EQ. As a result, it might be a bit redundant for a lot of individuals who just prefer to tinker around with the 3-band EQ to their heart's content rather than letting the phone or indeed the app choose what the EQ should be. Now it should also be pointed out that active noise cancellation does have a slight hindrance in terms of the overall audio fidelity, and that is no surprise because the same could be said about a lot of its competitors. Ultimately here, active noise cancellation will boost a little bit of the mid bass, take away from the mids, and also roll off the top end, in other words the highs. You can of course counteract this via the EQ, but it's just something I thought to point out. So with that in mind, let's break it down in terms of the sound frequency range. Now in the sub-bass tones, I don't think the Momentum True Wireless 3 can truly compete with the likes of the Grado GT220s or let's say for example the Technics EAH-AZ60s, which just provide that lower echelons of those bass tones and also give you that deeper rumble. So as a result, if you like listening to D&B, R&B or let's say EDM, I think you'll much prefer those bass lines that these other earbuds provide. But on the flip side, the mid bass is really punchy and also controlled, which is somewhat of a Sennheiser trait. I will say, however, for my own taste, I did have to EQ the bass by a few notches or enable the bass boost function, although that does have a hindrance in terms of the lower mids, so I tended to side away from what the bass boost was actually there for. So you might want to play around with this, but ultimately what I'm trying to say here is the mid bass tones are pretty impressive. Now as for the mid-range, here it's one of the biggest selling points of the Sennheiser Momentum line, and it's no different with the version 3, because here the lower mids and the upper mids are brought to the foreground, and means that both male and female vocals come out really well. Now when I compare these to the AZ60s, I will say that the lower mids of the Sennheisers are just far superior. However, the upper mids are pretty much near on identical, so it depends in terms of the music that you listen to, but here in terms of the mid-range tones, the Sennheisers are still the kings in this department. Now as for the highs, they extend really well. Even though you get a slight bit of roll-off with active noise cancellation enabled, I still felt that adding one notch or just leaving the EQ in terms of its default configuration gives you a fantastic high-end extension, and as a result gives you that excitement and top-end cymbals, and means that you're going to have your toe tapping to your favorite tracks. So while it's impressive across the frequency range, I was left a little bit disappointed when it came to its soundstage, and the reason behind this is because Sennheiser has altered the overall housing. It's a bit different from its predecessors, and as such means that the overall width and depth that one might have attained previously is not quite there. These earbuds just don't sound as airy as its predecessors, or indeed some of the alternatives out there on the market. Say for example the Technics EAH-AZ60s, the Grado GT220s, or let's say the NuraTrue earbuds. Here these earbuds are still very impressive, but not as impressive or as airy and spacious sounding as its rivals or indeed its siblings. Now don't get me wrong, the overall instrument separation is still phenomenal. The same could have been said for example about the Jabra Elite 7 Pros, which don't have that equivalent sort of airiness, but their instrument separation far makes up for this, and the same could be said about the Sennheiser Momentum True Wireless 3, which do an excellent job of giving you great instrument separation, allowing you to keep engaged when you're listening back to your favorite tracks.
So what about when it comes to recording quality? Well, everything you can hear right now is coming directly from the Sennheiser earbuds, and subjectively I think the recording quality isn't as good as it should be, specifically given that Sennheiser has supposedly improved the microphones. And here I will say that some of its competitors do a better job of providing a more lifelike, accurate tone when it comes to taking calls. Now, just for comparison, here are the Technics AZ60s, and hopefully you'll be able to agree with me that the overall recording quality of the AZ60s is just a bit better. Specifically when it comes to the mid-range tones, my voice just comes out a little bit clearer. It's quite a shame over here given Sennheiser's pedigree. Elsewhere, you've also got the likes of the Jabra Elite 7 Pros, which are class leading in this department.
So with all of that in mind, I was very much curious to put them through its paces when it came to active noise cancellation, because my previous experiences with the Sennheiser Momentum True Wireless 2 was pretty poor, although that was before all the firmware updates, which potentially improved all those performances. Now what I will say over here is that out the box the version 3 do a far better job, and here they can be compared to the likes of the Jabra Elite 7 Pros. Now in comparison to the audiophile grade earbuds that I've referenced throughout this review, such as the Technics AZ60s, the Sennheisers are far superior. And as for the Grado GT220s, well, they don't support it altogether. In other words, they don't have ANC. So as a result here, out of the bunch, out of the three over here, I would pick the Sennheisers. But it's worth bearing in mind that if active noise cancellation is very important to you, then you'll want to look elsewhere. For example, the Libratone Track Air Plus or the Sony earbuds, or for example, ones from One More, offer the best active noise cancellation when it comes to a set of true wireless earbuds. So moving on to the app, I should mention that these earbuds do not support Bluetooth multipoint, one of the selling points of some of its competitors. Instead here, you'll only be able to see what the earbuds have been previously connected to and or switch to them via one singular connection, so you can't be simultaneously paired to two devices, which I do think is going to be a major throw-off for some consumers. As for the equalizer, you've got a 3-band equalizer. You can see I've added 2 notches to the bass EQ, left bass boost and podcast disabled. You can also go via the preset EQs if you so wish, or via the My Soundcheck preset, which as you can see over here, just applies its own EQ. I was pretty much on point with the bass EQ, although I do disagree with its treble EQ, which I do find it to be a bit too bright with its sound profile, and as a result went on my own tailored profile. Now you do also have transparency mode, which you can enable or disable, and also wind noise, and you can also disable or enable active noise cancellation. The sound modes are quite useful if you're going to go in certain places, and you can see over here it does automatically update it based based on your GPS location, which is quite handy. Now, as for the touch controls, I'm pretty impressed at the fact that you can adjust the single, double and triple and hold functionalities all independently from the left and right channels. You've got a variety of different options to choose from, so media controls, or for example, if you want to go through the noise cancellation or transparency modes, you can even switch them off over here as well. It's great to see the large amount of customization. Now, as for the actual touch sensitivity, I'm actually really impressed. I had no problems when it came to registering inputs, and I had no problems whatsoever when it came to adjusting my media. This made it for quite intuitive experience when on the move. Now, moving back onto the app via the settings preset, you can update your firmware, enable or disable smart pause, auto accept call and auto power off, which you can also adjust the duration, and elsewhere you can enable or disable the tone and voice prompts and change the language if you so wish. Elsewhere you can do a factory reset and also adjust the tiles that are present on the home screen. So with the app and a few of its features out of the way, I should also mention that these earbuds are IPX4 certified, so therefore if you're going out on about and it's slightly drizzling, you don't have to worry about them getting damaged. Now elsewhere, I should point out that for audiophile grade earbuds, they've got actually a relatively small form factor. They're not exactly minuscule, but in comparison to the likes of the Grado GT220s, the Technics EAH-AZ60s, or for example the NuraTrue earbuds, the Sennheisers are far smaller and therefore will fit in smaller ear canals or those people who have smaller ears. I have no problems with all these mentioned earphones because I've got pretty big ears, but it's just something I thought to point out. Now elsewhere, when it comes to battery life, these earbuds will last roughly 7 hours on a single charge, and with the case will extend up to 28 hours. The USB Type-C port provides fast charging, which is great, and natively the case also has wireless charging. Now it's worth bearing in mind that the case itself is a little bit chunky, although it is pretty stylish, at least in my opinion, and the earbuds are also available in different finishes such as black, white and graphite. And so this brings me on to my verdict of the Sennheiser Momentum True Wireless 3. And frankly, on the whole, I'm pretty impressed. They provide good mid-range accuracy, are good across the frequency range, provide you a good sort of active noise cancellation, and have got a small form factor. As such, I can definitely see myself recommending them. However, there's some alternatives out there on the market. My personal favourites are the Technics EAH-AZ60s, which provide fantastic recording and sound quality, plus have the LDAC codec support. Elsewhere, you've got the likes of the Libratone and One More earbuds for active noise cancellation, and the Jabra Elite 7 Pros are no slouch when it comes to the overall instrument separation, recording quality, and their overall form factor. Suffice to say, there's plenty of alternatives, which isn't the same that could have been said back in 2018. And as such, I'd be intrigued to hear your thoughts of these earbuds and in terms of its alternatives down in the comment section below. Now, if you've liked this detailed independent review and want to see more from myself, definitely do drop a like, subscribe and hit that bell notification, all of which would be greatly appreciated. And if you've done that already, I just want to thank you in advance. As such, I've been Totally Dubbed and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves and goodbye.